welcome to the On the Whistle podcast. My name is Ali Howorth. I'm here alone today doing the match review, but it is and not really a match I want to be reviewing because Esperance got comfortably outplayed by Flamengo 2-0 in the end to the Brazilians. The Taraji were never in this game, and it was kind of come away with a bit of a disappointing taste, but let's get into it. Coming into the game, there was a lot of excitement. I think I always, not forget, but you are always slapped in the face by North African football fans, and in particular Tunisian fans. They are elite, and Esperance, more so than most, are even better. I really enjoyed kind of being in this part of Philadelphia, especially having been in Miami, which is a stadium in the middle of nowhere with nothing around. It's kind of a bit like gross, whereas here there's three stadiums: the baseball stadium, the I don't even know, ice hockey stadium, and the American football stadium. And then there was a big kind of things like called the NBC Sports Arena or something, where there's lots of bars and things like that. And that was packed with Flamengo and Esperance fans, which was very exciting. And this was one of the reasons why I was so excited for this game, because this was one of the games that's between two different continents, both of which we knew would bring amazing fans. Flamengo, the biggest team in Brazil, a tremendous fan base. I mean, I remember covering them in 2023 when they went to Morocco for the Club World Cup. Back when the Club World Cup wasn't as big a deal. I think they had like 30 or 40,000 fans traveling from Rio to Tangiers. Like, they are incredible, but the Tunisians, I think, even outdid them. The Esperance fans were amazing. They were probably outnumbered like 4 or 5 to 1. But you couldn't tell. They were excellent. They were loud. They were boisterous. The chants were incredible. They did a little tifo at the beginning. We kind of were questioning whether there would be any kind of Palestinian-related content. I spoke to some people and they were saying that they kind of decided internally among the fan base that it wasn't worth it. Given the current political climate in the U.S., that they might not be able to kind of come back into the country or leave it or whatever else. So there were a few Palestinian flags, but not so many chants or tifos. But that's kind of where the competitiveness ended, because this was not a pretty game. Esperance were comprehensively outplayed by Flamengo from minute one. Kind of Flamengo dominated the ball. Esperance couldn't get a touch on it, and you could just tell that these were two different teams in two different leagues. And I think this is why I love the Club World Cup, because you don't 100% know what to expect from some of these clubs that come from continents you don't follow. I knew Flamengo coming into this were probably the best team in South America and the best team in Brazil, certainly. I wasn't kind of fully prepared for how good they would be. They were superb. Jorginho, who slotted into this game, was fantastic, and they just controlled the ball. I mean, I think I had it in my notes that Esperance didn't have a spell of possession until the 24th minute, and that's just how it felt. Like, Flamengo just controlled the ball, controlled everything about it, and it was very disappointing. In the 16th minute, I think that's when they took the lead, and it kind of, the big question for in our preview that we did with Tunisian legend and former coach Radi Jaidi, he spoke about the big question is whether Tunisian, their wingers, how are they going to balance defending and attacking, because most of the quality in this team comes through Yansas and Yusuf Belali on the wings. But if they have to keep defending, they're not going to be able to attack. The answer came in the form that Belali wouldn't defend, and that's what would cost them. Alasdair, who's, for my money, probably the best player in this Flamengo team, the Uruguayan number 10, unbelievable. Found a pocket of space, immediately played it out to Guilherme Varela on the right back overlapping, which was already in the 16th minute. I think it was the third, maybe fourth time that they had done that. Ben Hamida completely isolated, ball played in behind him, great cross. Pedro headers it back. Alasdair's there to finish. And from that moment, honestly, like, it just felt like the game was over. Not because Flamengo flooded forward, not because they were dominating in that sense, but they just controlled the game. They let Esperance keep the ball, but they never let them get into their half. And that kind of first half played out like that. And again, this is what you hear about Brazilian teams, that they're all about controlling tempo, controlling the play. They're not all action like a lot of European teams. It's amazing to see kind of up front. From an Esperance perspective, I was disappointed with the starting lineup. I really wanted to see Ashraf Jabri start up front instead of Rodrigo Rodriguez, because I think he's a better runner and a more willing runner. But the big one that I was really disappointed when I saw the starting lineup was Abderrahmane Konate wasn't playing. And for me, that was a huge mistake. He is full of energy, kind of attacking box-to-box midfielder. Kind of not, Frank Lampard, where he is a box-to-box midfielder, but he loves to get kind of in on the action up front. And I just felt like he would be really needed because they needed to kind of control that midfield of Jorginho, Pulgar, and De Escareta. Instead, they went with Jebeli, and I just felt like he didn't offer anything. He's more of a proper number 10. He tried to get up with Rodrigo Rodriguez, who, to his credit, held up the ball fairly well, was trying to bring other players into it, but they just had nothing, and that midfield of Flamengo completely dominated. Fortunately, at halftime, Mario kind of sorted that. He brings on Konate. He puts him on the left wing, which is quite an interesting move, and he brings off Jansas, who'd had a very poor half, kind of anonymous for Elias Mokona. Mokona didn't make much of an impact, but Konate did. Konate was really good, but more importantly, he was willing to, although he's more of an attack-minded player, he's tremendously hard-working, and he tracked back, did his doggies, everything that Belele wouldn't do. He forced Belele into the kind of center forward position alongside Rodriguez, played a 4-4-2, and Belele was a lot better. He was able to be direct, able to get on the ball, push. Man, despite him being 33, he is rapid, and I think he was pretty much Esperance's only threat. At times, I felt like he had a bit of the Jude Bellingham syndrome, kind of trying to do too much by himself, didn't really rely on his teammates enough. But again, it's a hard ask when you've kind of not got much quality around you. So, second half, Flamengo have a really, really good chance early on that Benhamina makes a fantastic block to deny the goal. But aside from that, Flamengo didn't really create much, and Esperance were growing into the game. They only had one shot that was blocked in the first half. Second half, they already had 2 or 3 shots in the first 10 minutes. They were building ahead of steam, getting some free kicks. Belele kind of looked like he was just beat a couple men and then overrun it, beat a man, then just lose control. Like he was just on the verge of, doing his kind of trademark cutting in, whipping it far post. And right as they kind of built up ahead of steam in the 70th minute, Flamengo, boom, score, kind of knock the wind out of Esperance completely. It was a superb goal, actually. They'd kind of crossed from deep left. It's worked back on the right wing. I think it's Varela again, plays it inside Jorginho, and Jorginho with a sublime little cute pass, first time round the corner. Konate is in no man's land. I said he worked hard and did well, but he's an attacking player, not defensively disciplined. And he tried, it was just a superb ball. Luis Araujo, the guy I think he was the one who got the assist for the first goal, turns around, bends it into the bottom corner. That was game done. And it was a huge disappointment from an Esperance perspective, because you felt on another day, if they had started with Konate, if they had started, less so with Jabri, but especially Konate, with those legs, they could have been more of a threat. They could have been more stable at the back. But it just felt like from minute one, Flamengo were on top. From minute one, Flamengo were the better side. I'm really excited for Flamengo. A friend of mine was asking me yesterday if I had any hot tips for the Club World Cup, and I told him, keep an eye out for Flamengo. They are seriously good. If any team is going to kind of give the Europeans a run for their money, it is Flamengo. I'm super excited to see them play Chelsea, because I think that will be a really good game. Chelsea are kind of a terrifically talented team, but are also incredibly inconsistent. Whereas Flamengo didn't put a foot wrong. Now, having said that, Esperance did not give them much of a challenge. Flamengo looked very comfortable, and it's kind of, it's always hard to say, is that because they were excellent or because Esperance were really bad. From an Esperance perspective, it's really hard to come back from here. Obviously, Flamengo is always going to be the tricky one, but you felt like if they were going to get out of this group, they needed to get a result here, or at the very least, push them. Now, having watched not quite the entirety of the Chelsea LAFC game, when they play Chelsea, it's going to be another big tough ask. And I felt what really disappointed me with Esperance is it felt like their defensive shape wasn't very good. And that was the one thing that I was kind of like, I think Esperance will nail this, especially if they play Abderrahmane Konate. They've got kind of 3 deeper players with Ganichi and Ogbelu. They can hold that shape. But the amount of times there were spaces behind the midfield, in front of the defense, for me, that is where there was a huge disappointment. And for me, if there's one thing Chelsea are excellent at, it's Cole Palmer finding spaces in between the back line and the midfield. It's Nicholas Jackson dropping in, finding those. And we saw that for that goal that Chelsea scored, their first goal against LAFC. Nicholas Jackson drops in, sharp turn, lovely through ball, Pedro Neto's away. So for me, that's going to be such a tough ask for Esperance to get anything out of Chelsea. To be honest, I think LAFC, I wasn't super impressed. Obviously, they do have some really good players. I think Giroud and Boanga are excellent. Giroud obviously not nearly as mobile as he used to be, but still good. And Dennis Boanga is, excellent. Obviously, Gabon international. For me, Esperance, going into this group, I think my prediction was them to come third. I had backed them to come ahead of LAFC. Having watched this game, they have a lot of work to do even to come third. I think having watched the Chelsea LAFC game and the Esperance game today, I think Esperance will really struggle. Flamengo and Chelsea, I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be toe to toe, but I think for Esperance, like when you compare their budgets to all these teams, even LAFC, they are miles behind them. So for them, 2-0 isn't a great result, but for them to even be competitive is good, and I think that they can build on that. I think hopefully in the next game, hopefully we'll see a slightly different formation. I think what we've seen is that Belele is fantastic going forward, maybe a bit too selfish, but he can't be relied on defensively. And at this level, you can't get away with that. So I think if when they play Chelsea, he has to play through the middle. Because they will get hammered at right back. Now the one thing that's nice is I guess Chelsea don't play with an overlapping right back. They tend to play with Kukurea being the one that pushes forward. Reece James comes in a bit, so maybe he can get away with it. I just can't see that happening. But tough game, tough result, and yeah, we'll be